Good.
So we're good? Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin the meeting with a moment of silence. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being recorded and televised by WHCA. Is there a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
A motion to accept correspondence in the read file?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Public forum, is there anyone here who would like to speak on something that's not on the agenda? Be my guest.
John Galvin, High Street. Those of us that were at the last select board meeting and those who were able to watch the broadcast, we're expecting an agenda item tonight discussing the difference between a 3-year override and a 1-year override. Somehow that decision got made behind closed doors, out of the public eye. Mrs. Carter has been spending many, many hours with her team developing a budget document for fiscal year 26. The amazing thing about that document is that this year included a forecast for fiscal year 27 and fiscal year 28. An interesting part of that document was the ability to insert different override amounts into the document in one place. And it would forecast out the impact of that override over 26, 27, and 28. 2 of the override amounts you're discussing tonight don't even get through into fiscal 27 without significant overrides. Or deficits, I should say. Only the 2.5 million one gives us a chance to go into fiscal 27 without a deficit. All 3 of those amounts forecast significant deficits in fiscal year 28. Last meeting, Chief Hanlon, Chief Clancy, Superintendent of Schools, Jeff Simonak, all advocated for a 3-year override to properly fund their departments. But yet, for the second year in a row, the Select Board is deferring to the Finance Committee to direct the budget. I personally don't agree with the decisions that the Finance Committee made. I'm going to vote for the override because I know of the devastating effect it's going to have if it doesn't pass. But myself, I cannot advocate for any of these 3 numbers you're discussing tonight because all we're doing is kicking the can down the road to face the same issue again next year. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John, a long list of where you were off in your remarks. Number one, there's an item on the agenda for budget update. We also have the 3 items that you discussed, and you weren't going to be discussing things on the agenda. You also suggested that there was something that was done behind closed doors, and there was an agreement made. What we plan to do tonight is to discuss whether the Board of Selectmen goes along with the 1-year advice of the Finance Committee or whether it changes it to 3 years. We haven't had the discussion yet. That will happen tonight. And we also are going to be voting on one of these articles to put on the town meeting warrant. So I don't.
Can I respond?
Not yet. Not yet. I just. You made another remark that last year we gave in to the Finance Committee and supported what they did. It's not what happened last year. What happened last year was that the Finance Committee took over the town meeting in a way that they can, and they voted to do it a totally different way than we had suggested. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm correct. So that was wrong too, John. I just need to mention that. If you want to respond to what I just said, be my guest. Kathy, I'm right, correct?
Yes, the Finance Committee
recommended a method of financing fiscal '25.
Right.
That did not involve an override. It was contrary to what the select board recommended.
Exactly. We recommended an override.
You recommended with
And-
override, with override. We recommended no override, and
Right.
nobody loses their job.
Right.
Using free cash. So we
Right.
did. But with respect to Mary Beth Carter, she's done an amazing job in the past, both in fiscal '25 and again in fiscal '26. So it's a mutually respectful relationship that we have. And this year, I think we're close to the same page. We've been working much more closely together.
Okay. I'll let John respond to
So
my snarky remarks.
as I read the agenda, there are 3 options for warrant articles that are going to get voted in new business. All 3 of them are 1-year overrides. So my assumption is that in order, one of those is going to get voted. So a 1-year override is long voted on before a budget update to discuss a 3-year override. So if I read that wrong, I apologize, but I don't think I did. Secondly, I didn't say you supported the Finance Committee. I said you're allowing them to take over direction of the budget for the town. And in my opinion, the decisions made last year and the decision made this year to not support a 3-year override, I do not agree with. So, and based on the fact that all 3 of those amounts that are on there right now do not get the job done. All they're going to do is kick the can down the road to next year, where we're going to be standing here again next year discussing the same thing we're discussing now. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I totally agree with you as far as that's concerned. However, the Board of Selectmen was ready last week, or the last time we had a meeting, and we were discussing the difference between a 1 and a 3. And the Finance Committee went off after we had the joint meeting, and they made their decision. We haven't had a chance to discuss it as a board since that time. So it was under my impression that we were going to do that tonight. Those 3 are on the. Maybe Mary Beth can say why they're there, but
And actually,
they become moot if we decide that no, we want to explore the 3-year between now and the next meeting.
Friday.
What?
You do have to vote it by Friday.
Well, okay, by Friday. Yes.
The actual ballot question language amount does not have to be printed on the agenda. We do just need to have the amount voted and to the clerk by the 10th. So,
Okay. Okay, anybody else? It's time for a public meeting with respect to the, oh, no, I'm sorry. Approval of meeting minutes, open session January 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Scheduled hearings, public meeting with respect to the application of F&C Investment Corp. Incorporated, doing business as Whitman Auto Center for a Class 2 auto dealer's license on the premises located at 539 Washington Street, subject to receipt of a surety bond as required by MGL Chapter 40, Section 58, and final approval of the building commissioner on the $100 license fee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this? Yes. Be my guest.
Oh, oh.
Say how many vehicles?
I think he
Oh, so-
misunderstood it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
No, I have how many vehicles?
10?
Anybody else? Yes.
That's a proposal that was supported by Mr. Piccirilli. Yes.
It has been already?
Those 2 that we reviewed, but the lesser of the amount was proposed by Mr. Piccirilli, not I think it was closer to 13 or more.
Correct,
Yeah.
he's going with the building inspector approved.
And you're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Huh? Welcome.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Sean, you had your hand up before when.
I can wait till
You can wait?
the discussion. Yep.
Okay. John, just to clear the air, just to clear the air just a little bit. When you recited the people who were in favor of a 3-year override, to both police chiefs, the superintendent, the chair of the school committee, that has concerned me too. Once I found out that the finance committee was voting for a 1, because I thought it was actually going in the other direction at our meeting, and so that has just wanted to let you know that's been a concern of mine as well. Back to the recommendation of Chief Hanlon to ingress parking fines. This is a fun night.
Trying to make this as entertaining as possible, sir. So we haven't increased parking fines since around 1983, and I think we're probably due. So we've been batting this around. It's been on the back burner for a few years. And so the proposal that I put in front of you through an email to increase the $15 and the $10 fines up to $30, which comes to approximately the same rate as it would have been in the 1983 dollars. Mm-hmm. And so that's the recommendation. And also the unregistered bicycle fine should be removed from the parking ticket itself, as it was repealed in 2008. There is an improper operation of bicycle. It's still in effect under 8511B. And most towns have removed any littering violation from their parking tickets, as they don't, the fine isn't tied to the violator's motor vehicle registration status. So if you need me to go down each individual fine, I will do that, but that's the recommendation.
Anyone have any questions? Okay.
We'll make that effective as of, if it goes through and you approve it, as of July 1st, so we can have time to get them printed up.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to do so?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, if I may. Chief, now the parking fines, there's no overnight parking on the street or on side streets? People live on side roads and they park in front of their house and not in the driveway. They may have 2 cars and the wife's got to leave early or the husband's got to leave earlier there, so they park on the, in front of the house, which is on the street. I'm thinking of my next door neighbor, by the way.
So, yeah, so if they're not in violation, there is on-street parking unless it's posted otherwise, or during snow emergencies. But otherwise, they're good as long as they're not
Impeding,
on the sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah, all those
That's a big issue on School Street.
on the sidewalk.
Yeah, they're always on the sidewalk because it's a.
So then they would be in violation if they're in the street
Yeah.
parked.
And in the winter, no overnight parking on the street at all, or just during possible snow? That's all, right?
If I can jump in there, so that's currently a proposal in the warrant. We're voting tonight to change it to through the whole winter rather than just during snow emergencies. So,
Correct.
Into the chief's question.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. All those in favor?
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an amendment to the host community agreement for the Stories Company Whitman LLC, 769 Bedford Street, and related agreement for a special permit amendment. Peter, would you like to speak about this?
Sure. So Stories is one of your approved marijuana retailers in Whitman. You have 3. You have a cap of 3 retailers. So you've got a full slate. One of them, Berkeley Botanicals, approached the town about a year ago, indicating they were having some trouble with the CCC and requesting an amendment to the HCA. We ended up agreeing with them, and they went to the Zoning Board of Appeals for an amended special permit. The Zoning Board of Appeals adopted some of the zoning conditions that were previously in the HCA and added them as amended special condition or amended conditions for the special permit. And now they are well on their way to getting open. And we agreed to the model host community agreement from the CCC with Berkeley. Stories has now approached the town looking for a similar amendment to their HCA to help them get through the licensing process with the model agreement. And they are in the process of filing an application with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So tonight, I'm asking you for authorization for your chair to execute a amended host community agreement in the form of the model agreement with Stories, as well as an agreement that they'll go to the ZBA and proceed with that process to get their special permit amended.
Someone like to make that motion?
Make that motion, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I have a, I
Justin.
guess, related question. So we had 3, I know when we amended the first HCA, we said it might be a good idea to reach out to the other 2 applicants. Did we reach out proactively, or did Stories reach out to us?
They reached out to us.
Okay. Would we be able to reach out to the third, I'm forgetting their name now, but the one on South Ave?
Yeah, it was Soulflower. I don't know what it is
Yeah.
currently.
Gauge their interest. And there was a karate studio that opened up in the location, so. Not sure how that's going to go.
Yeah, so we can do that and see about that third spot on your cap.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor of giving me some authority?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Peter. Okay, before we talk about these 3 questions that would go on the town warrant, we need to finish talking about whether it should be a 1-year or a 3-year override. We haven't really had that discussion at this meeting, or we haven't had it in the back room either. Last year, we had some meetings with the school committee and the finance committee, or at least the chair of the finance committee, about how town meeting would go last year. And it was, I think, pretty much our impression that it was going to go differently than it did. But the finance committee and the schools got together. I don't know if it was in the back room or not, but they agreed that we should use free cash. Still burns me, but that's beside the point. 1 or 3, would like to have a discussion. Sean, I want to give you a chance to talk.
Sure. Well, first of all, John, I apologize if part of the agenda was a little bit confusing. Next time, certainly reach out and, if something comes up like on Friday when you're reading it and you're like, hey, how come they're doing it? That, we'd happily give you some feedback. It certainly wasn't intentional. So I think, as I said before, I think it's very important that if we're going to ask the people of the town to sacrifice, that we show them how we're sacrificing. And I don't think it's irresponsible to ask for a number that's slightly less or less than what we need over the next 3 years and we're projecting. I think in some sense that's kind of our skin in the game. In a way, we are being asked to do a little bit more with a little bit less, and that's our sacrifice. So I think going for the smallest override in 1 year has the highest chances of passing, and I think that I would be really grateful for, and I think that the employees of the town would be really grateful for, and we can do a lot with that money. I'd feel terrible to ask for more and then get nothing. It's a situation I don't want to be in. I think that our situation, if we don't get an override, is dire. It's not smoke and mirrors. We're not trying to get people out. We really have to come up with this money. We have to balance the budget next year, and the impact on the town will be great. So I'd rather ask for a little and get a little than ask for too much and get nothing.
Ask for a little and hope that a little will go, that people will be willing to pay a little.
I've really been impressed by a lot of the people in town over the last couple of years. We've asked a lot of them, and they've really stepped up to the plate. The problem I'm having is there's been some conversations I've had with people I really respect who have been strong town supporters. I've looked up to them my whole life who are saying, I really don't know if we can afford the tax increase. These aren't, there's going to be certain people on both sides that will say, yes, without question, I'll support the override, or no, without question, I won't.
Right.
These are people who have supported the town for a long time that I really respect, who are saying the tax increase is really pretty significant. So, and I'm concerned.
Anyone else like to say something?
Sure.
Justin?
I did listen to the finance committee's meeting last week than when they discussed the merits of a 1 year versus a 3 year. And although I still think that a 3 year is the one that makes the most sense financially, I appreciated their discussion. I think a lot of it was around the practicality of explaining why this is the amount of money we need, and not so much how you're going to use excess levy and manage that process in the next 6 weeks. So I think that there is some merit. They voted unanimously. That kind of surprised me. I think there would be some merit in us, if we're all on the same page, also unanimously supporting a 1 year override, even if we disagree about the ultimate number among these three questions. To have that agreement with the finance committee and say, you know, maybe not the best financial decision long term, but this is what we need. We need it now, and we are in agreement.
Okay. Thank you. You want to have anything to say?
Yes, I do. When I look at this decision, I'm not a big fan of overrides. But fact is, I agree that 1 year lowest amount that we get, because I mean it increase. I'm afraid that if we go with a 3 year or a 2 year with a lot more of the override money, that would leave department heads to be looking and say, well, we got a 3 year override for $2.4 million, right? We only used X amount last year, you know, and just open the door for them just to not control their budgets, whether it's town budgets or school budgets, right? If you know exactly what you have to spend, it's like a family. If you got $100 to go out and eat, you don't buy a $300 meal, right? You know what you have to spend, and it helps control their. It gives them to do their budgets of what they need and not what they want. So that's why call me cheap, but that's how I think. You know, they need to be able to control their budgets, and the more money you give, it just opens the doors to bigger budgets. It's that simple, in my mind.
Thank you, Dan. Mary Beth, you want to add something to this discussion?
As I said at the last meeting, I feel the fiscally responsible thing to do would be looking at the numbers that I did plug into the override side. Put a number in that would carry us for 3 years. Just to give you a point of reference here, for the three amounts that are on the warrant, if we put in a $1.7 million override, we have about $2,000 left over in the excess levy this year. And then we are short in 27 by about $895,000, and short in 28 a little over $2 million.
Mary Beth, before you, sorry, Carl, does that include assuming that town meeting will support Articles 19 and 20 to use free cash for the retirement assessment and OPEB?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I put that across the board. For a $2 million override, I have that we have $302,000 in excess levy this year, and then we would be short $587,000 next year and $1.8 in 28. And a $2.4 million override would be $702,000 in excess levy this year, short about $177,000 next year, which could be made up with revenues or whatnot, hard to say, and $1.3 in fiscal 28. I do understand, you know, the point of keeping it short as well, but I just want to let you know that the difference between just these three amounts, and I can put in any amount here for projection. I did put in 3.7 million if we ever went for that type of an override. That would leave, let's see, that would leave $2 million excess this year, 1,150,000, you know, that rolls into next year, 1,150,000 that rolls into the third, and we'd be short about 27,000 in fiscal 28. But just looking at these three amounts that are on the agenda, the difference between a $1.7 million override and a $2.4 million override on the average home for fiscal 25, average single home of $495,736.78 is a difference of $10.87 a month, or $130.44 a year.
The difference between 2.4 and 1.7?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, what's the total amount? If you go 1.7, how much is the increase in taxes?
The increase in taxes to the average home is $316.76. Monthly increase of $26.40. Yeah,
Thank you.
so.
Any other remarks?
Yeah, we got FinCom.
Justin?
I'm happy to let Kathleen speak, though, if you don't mind. We've got a
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Kathleen Otina, 344 Washington Street, Chair of the Finance Committee. I was also surprised that we unanimously supported a one-year override because I went in convinced that the 3-year was the fiscally
I was
sound.
looking at you all too, and I thought that it was going to go that way.
We have a fairly green Finance Committee, 4 new members this year, one of them with us for just a month. And yet they've done a lot of work. They've done a great job. It's a pretty steep learning curve for anybody who's been on the Finance Committee. You don't come in knowing stuff, you come in learning stuff. But we had an extensive discussion, and we went from some people supporting no override to some of us supporting the 3-year override. And we were definitely impressed by both the police chief and fire chief's appeal for the 3-year. We absolutely were sensitive to that. But we were also swayed by Justin's presentation of the statistics of how many times the voters have been asked for an override and how many times we were successful. And the statistics were not in our favor. So the rationale, or I think the final point that was made by our discussions was the 1-year override stands the best chance of passing. We'd hate to risk going for the fiscally responsible 3-year override and get nothing. So better to go for the 1 year, hope that next year local receipts increase, some financing from the state increases, some financing in Chapter 70 increases, that some of the costs and revenues change for fiscal 27. And we may not be looking at the deficit that we are right now. And so we thought we would take the conservative approach, recommend the 1-year override, add an amount that would be sufficient, not to just barely squeak by, but sufficient because you still have 5 unions, one of which has settled, 4 of which are in states I'm not aware of. So we don't know what that's going to cost. So I think it's the 1-year override was unanimously supported as the override that stood the best chance of passing.
Okay. Thank you. I was going to ask you for a report of what they had discussed. So.
Not for you?
No, that's good. No, thank you very much.
And so, kind of with that, I would lean towards the $2.4 million number, knowing that I don't want to assume that town meeting is going to support the use of free cash for things that we are going to have to pay this year. And we've got 5 unions, 4 of which we're waiting to settle. Do not expect all of them to be completed before town meeting. So that'll be an open question. I'm a little concerned by the economic outlook in the next year and potential loss of federal grant funding, although that's more on the school side, I think, than us. But we'd also have to pay that bill. So I'm a little spooked by the market realities right now and making assumptions about how town meeting is going to vote. So I think, it is still a 1-year override using the deficit that we projected 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you. I do understand the significance of a united front, and to have the Finance Committee and the Select Board united in a 1-year override. As I said in my opening remarks, there's a pretty big difference between 2 of the numbers in there and the 1. The 1.7 million that Mr. Kane and Mr. Salvucci are advocating for, as Mrs. Carter said, leaves us close to a $900,000 deficit going into next year. Now, this is based on a forecast document, okay? And forecasts are forecasts. They are what they are. But it's the best tool we have. Maybe it's a $700,000 deficit going into next year if we do the 1.7, but maybe it's a $1.1 million deficit going into next year. So, as I said before, if we're looking at these 3 numbers, to me, the only one that makes sense is the $2.4 million one, because that gets us a fighting chance to get through into fiscal year 27. If we're at 200,000 or whatever it is, if we're looking at $900,000 next year. Where do we go? There's no recourse. There's no option for another override next year because it's not going to happen. You know, we're looking at layoffs at the end of next year unless we come up with some miracle money. So if we're going to go with the 1-year override, I please strongly suggest that you look at the 2.4.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, I've been moved by Sean and Justin's, Sean because he's been consistent on looking for a 1 year, and I perfectly understand the reasons. I was for the 3, and to hear Justin kind of go along with that made a lot of difference to me too. I think probably the 1 year is the way we should go. However, I'm really hoping that Sean does a lot of serious thinking right now about the 2.4, because I agree with John that that's the only way we're going to even come close to doing anything next year. I'm not convinced that the town would vote it down. This town has been generous to the schools historically over the years. Now, this isn't just a school budget; it's a budget for everyone. And that was actually our choice to do too, to make this an operational budget for the town, not for just the schools. I've seen the town been generous a lot over the course of my years here, and I have faith in it. On the other hand, and I also know that when we did that survey a few years ago, 6 years ago maybe now, about what the town valued, it was really clear that the town valued the schools, the police department, fire department, and the DPW, because they like their streets plowed early. Those are the values of the town. However, the town hasn't always been willing to pay for it. There has to come a time when they take a gulp, and this might be that time. I like a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'd like a motion to, what motion are you going to make, Sean? You're going to make this easy for me, or you're going to make it tough? What we
I
don't
was
want,
gonna make a motion for a 1-year override at $2 million.
$2 million.
Bit of a compromise.
Okay, is there a second? Oops. Would someone else like to make a motion?
I'll give it a try. I'll make a motion for a 1-year override at $2.4 million.
Is there a second for that? I'll pass the gavel, and I'll second that motion. Okay. Is there any discussion of the 2.4? Okay. Yes.
I think I said it already, but yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. No need to repeat myself.
Okay. All those in favor of the 2.4, a 1-year override at 2.4 million? Okay, 2. And all those opposed? 2 to 2. That's sweet. Would someone like to make you want to make your motion again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make a motion for a 1-year override at $2 million.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor? I'll vote for them. All those opposed? Okay, so we'll be the one that will go on the ballot, although this could change, couldn't it, between now and then? This has to be ready by Friday?
Correct.
Okay, so it won't change.
Yep.
So that will be what goes on the ballot.
The 2 million, okay.
Yeah.
That's listed there too, right?
Yes. Very good.
Well, that was fun. Just to clear up one other thing, John, it's always been my impression and my belief that the Finance Committee is there to offer advice to the town, not to run the budget, not to control the budget. I don't think, on the boards of selectmen that I've been on, it's not been the case that the Finance Committee runs the show. But we do like advice. This is the first time that I recall but my memory isn't as good as it used to be. It's the first time that I recall that the Finance Committee actually came to, earlier than usual, a rationale and some advice for what it was doing. Does that make sense to you, Kath?
Yes,
There was,
it does.
there was a, we asked the Finance Committee for advice and they gave us advice. That hasn't always been the case. That hasn't always been the case. So, just to maybe clear that up.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
I really believe that the reason that this fiscal year, as challenging as it has been as smooth as it has been compared to last year, is that several of us have met early and often to discuss things. Mary Beth, Sean, and I started meeting in August just to discuss ground rules. And I didn't agree with them. We didn't agree with each other, but we listened to each other. We went home and thought, and we'd come back and we'd discuss some more. So I think keeping the lines of communication open has been key to having a united front from the Finance Committee and the Select Board, that we haven't been two ships passing in the night, not seeing each other. We've been in constant communication, and I can't thank Mary Beth and Kathy Keefe enough for the incredible work that they've done running the budget simulations repeatedly and making adjustments, up to the last minute. So I think I look forward to this being the norm rather than the exception in future years.
Thank you, Kathy. Are you next on the agenda?
I just wanted to raise a question in terms of the ballot language for you all.
Sure.
Just to clarify. And so the ballot language is, shall the town of Whitman be allowed to assess an additional $2 million in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding the fiscal year 2026 operating budget of the town for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025. And I would suggest that we be clear in both the warrant and in the ballot question that it is for the purpose of funding the fiscal year 2026 operating budget, including the town's regional school district assessments for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to include that language?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
Just that I appreciate Peter saying regional schools and not just Whitman Hanson Regional School District, because there are two regional schools at stake in this budget.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Actually, there's 3 or 4 regional schools. Whitman, Hanson,
Yeah.
Norfolk, Aggie, and Plymouth County.
I don't think we can choose to reject the Norfolk and
There's a line item fund up, so Article 2 for Norfolk, Aggie.
Is there other vocational schools?
Next item on the agenda is to vote to place the following question on the May 17th, 2025 annual town election ballot. Quote, shall the town vote to have its elected treasurer-collector become an appointed treasurer-collector of the town? Is there a motion to put that on the ballot?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
Mary Beth?
Yes, thank you. A few weeks ago, I appeared on the Whitman Hanson Cable Access show Crosstalk with Kevin Tachi to discuss the position of treasurer-collector, specifically elected versus appointed. This year, the town is putting forth an article on the annual town meeting warrant and a ballot question at the annual town election to change the current elected position of treasurer-collector to an appointed position. While this article has passed at town meeting a couple of times in the past, it has failed at the ballot both times. The reason that I continue to advocate for changing this important position from one which is elected to one which is appointed is because Whitman is currently behind the curve on this issue, and it is so important that the candidate who holds this position is well qualified. The Department of Revenue strongly urges cities and towns in Massachusetts to transition this position from elected to appointed due to the responsibility of this position and the skill set required. If this position is changed to an appointed position, the town will be able to attract a wider pool of candidates with strong credentials and relevant professional experience. The person who holds this position is considered an essential member of the town's financial team. According to the Department of Revenue, there are 310 communities with both appointed treasurers and collectors, or 88%. 35 with both positions elected, and another 6 communities with an elected collector but appointed treasurer. The Mass Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services, states that the principle in local government is that policymakers should be elected in operational positions where specific qualifications and skill sets are required should be appointed. In the 27 towns in Plymouth County, there are only 3 towns other than Whitman that still have elected treasurer-collectors. Halifax has an elected treasurer-collector, Rockland has an elected treasurer and an elected collector, and Rochester has an appointed treasurer and an elected collector. The town of Kingston is transitioning to an appointed treasurer-collector, and it will be effective in 2027. Currently in Whitman, the only requirements for someone to run for treasurer-collector are that they must be a registered voter and a Whitman resident. This position, which is responsible for managing municipal finances, including tax collection, fund custody, payroll processing, and overseeing investments, all while adhering to state and local regulations, should be a position held by the most qualified person possessing the required experience and skill set. Having this position appointed instead of elected would better ensure that a competent and qualified person would hold this position. If you'd like more information on the issue, please watch the WHCA Crosstalk with me, Mary Beth Carter, and also additional information regarding this topic will be posted on the town's website later this week.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion? Yes.
Yeah, sure. I know this is it feels odd that we're bringing it up again, but to me it is important. Knowing the people of Whitman, they don't like when people take away their authority. And I feel like the average person feels like we're asking that of them. For me, this isn't the main reason for the issue at all. The major issue for me is if we're looking for a competent person, that they have to be elected and live in Whitman it's kind of difficult. There are people in Whitman who are qualified that are kind of afraid of running an election, like running a campaign and being part of an election. And there's only a limited amount of people in Whitman who could run for the position. Whereas if we make it appointed, anybody who lives within 30, radius of 30 miles from here could then apply for the job. It just opens up the pool of qualified people significantly. And right now, the average person doesn't pay attention to how municipal finance works and accounting and treasurer collectors, but it feels like just in general that pool is getting smaller. It's a real unique aspect of financial work, and to make it that much more difficult to get a qualified candidate here it's just hard. I want to take away some obstacles. I don't want to make it more difficult. Right now we're having a hard time. So,
Thank you. Justin?
I would just take another thing that worries me about this currently being an elected position is that currently we've appointed someone to do this job as an interim. That person does not live in Whitman. So this position is on the ballot this year. One person pulled papers and got 50 signatures, and that person, who I don't believe the 4 of us have met, does not work in town hall, will be handed a salary of $114,000 and oversee about $50 million in cash flow coming through that office. So the qualifications, hopefully she does a fantastic job, but her qualifications currently are that she got 50 signatures and turned them in.
Yes.
I did actually meet that person.
Excellent.
She stopped in. She does work in accounting, which is great. And she even said to me, I'm worried. I'm giving up my job for a 1-year term because it's just filling out the remainder of the term that was held by Ken Lytle. And I said, well, I'll be honest with you. We've been trying to get this appointed and still want to move that way. And she seemed to be for that. I said, you do a good job, and it isn't usually an issue.
Okay.
So.
Any other discussion? Yeah, all those in favor of having that placed on the ballot?
Aye.
Okay. Remind me that before we do the town administrator's report, I skipped over my chairman's report. And I just have a couple of things I want to say, but I'll do that before the town administrator's report. Next item on the agenda then is to act on the annual town meeting warrant. Mary Beth.
Yes. So I have put together the town meeting warrant. We are looking at this a couple of weeks earlier than normal. So I just, as I had thought about this, I would just like to have the board vote this warrant, subject to edits by town council, recommendations by the FinCom, because they're just going to start looking at this tomorrow evening, and any changes that may be needed due to the various union negotiations, because of course those are still ongoing, and so the last few articles in here could change as well. Just in looking, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this and go over all these articles. There is one article, though, and it is Article 13. It's Code of Ethics, and it needed bylaw review. And at the last meeting, you may remember that I did ask for permission to bring this to the Bylaw Study Committee. I did speak with the chairman after our meeting. He wanted it to go by town council first. I did receive some comments back from town council regarding this issue. So what I suggest, would like to suggest now is that we remove this article, but still bring this to the Bylaw Study Committee and see if they're interested in moving forward with it. If they are, we could put it on a subsequent special town meeting or next year's annual.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to do what Mary Beth just suggested we do?
All right, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion of that?
So this Article 13 will come off the,
Correct.
and there's no chance of them looking at this and lawyers looking at this and approving it, so it can be.
Our lawyers actually did look at this, town council did. Basically, they said that, let's see. No, this isn't the one.
And the bylaw study, they haven't looked at it at all?
No, they haven't. But I do have some comments here from town council. They had actually, they've never been asked to insert a code of ethics into the general bylaws in the past, but they do realize, saw that a couple of towns have done it. Of course, this would have to be approved by the AG's office. Portions of it may be too vague to actually enforce. There are no consequences that are listed in the code of ethics. So it's being viewed as aspirational if adopted. And it, town meeting certainly could adopt it, but implementing the provisions to union members would require notice to the unions for impact bargaining.
Well, could we leave it on here, and then if we don't get follow through from the bylaw study committee, we can pass over it?
Whatever you'd like to do.
I mean, if there's a chance that we could get this to happen, I don't know. I mean, why not just leave it in here, and if the bylaw study committee doesn't make a recommendation on it,
Then pass over it.
then pass over it.
Whatever you'd like to do.
So what do you all think? Works? Okay.
Well, sorry.
It's not a huge difference in what she's asking and what you're suggesting.
Right.
Because there's time between now and the town meeting for the attorneys and the bylaws committee to come up with a viewpoint on it.
Right, and that way, but if we get rid of it, take it off, then we can't bring it up at town meeting. But we can also, if it's on here as an article,
Well, that makes.
and then if in fact something you want to change the lettering, you can change an amendment. And
Make
you just
an
give it to
amendment on
town,
the
right,
change.
the town moderator.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense to me, yeah.
This is being proposed by the Board of Assessors.
Correct.
Yes. It'd be helpful, to get some feedback, I guess, from them, but they're proposing this, we're not proposing this.
Right.
If we were to propose something like this, we would go through the bylaw study committee. That's our general protocol for those sorts of things, so this is kind of running a bit counter to what our typical protocol would be. They didn't come to us and say, hey, we'd like to propose something and let's use the process that you typically do to run it through the bylaw study for all the obvious reasons that we do that, So I feel compelled to stick with our typical protocol, and for good reason. The bylaw study committee does their research and they work with, or maybe have to reach out to council to get advice. So I'd rather be thorough and do things the right way with putting things on the warrant. If this feels rushed to me, I'd need to know more about it before I could support it. I don't want to undermine what the assessors are trying to do, but we have a process for a reason, you know.
Justin?
Sort of along the lines of what Sean is saying, now that I'm looking at the two neighboring articles to it, which are also bylaw amendments, I think one of the things the bylaw study committee may do is locate a section of the bylaws to amend. It's missing from Article 13 right now. Where to insert this?
So you're thinking it might be a better idea to take it
I
off?
think maybe the bylaw study committee could suggest where to place this in the bylaws.
Yeah. So, okay, so what are we moving? We moving to remove it? Wait, and then have it go through the process that these things normally go through?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me.
No? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to remove it?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
You all right?
Yeah. I mean, if it has to be corrected, yeah, I mean,
Right.
we are going to have a special, you think?
I can't say, I said if we do have a special, then we put on the special, or the next time we meet
Right, because
special
you
or
can't,
annual.
if we have a vote on a debt exclusion for the override, right, that's on a special. If this passes, can we put that on that and people vote yes or no?
If we have a special town meeting, we could put something else on the warrant. But the debt exclusion, are you saying for the social vote?
And for the override?
Two different things, override
No, we don't.
and exclusion.
No, we're motion for, put an override on the ballot. People have to vote the override in.
Yeah, but that's at the annual town election.
Right, that's, yeah,
That's the
it'll be
annual.
too late for that, yeah, okay. Take it off.
Okay, all those in favor of removing it
Okay.
so they can go through the process that we normally go through?
Yeah.
So it'd be, you have referred to the bylaws committee already.
I mentioned it to the chairman
Right.
right after our meeting last week, and he said, no. I said, can we get a meeting together, maybe this week? And he said, well, why don't we just hold, reach out to council? So we heard back from council at the end of last week, and so.
Okay, so let's make sure it goes to the bylaws committee for
Absolutely.
action.
I think it
Okay.
should.
Not just, yeah,
I agree.
Right, and we're going to let the Board of Assessors know that we removed that from the article.
Sure. And I'll tell them that it's going to the bylaw
Yeah.
study committee. Yep.
okay.
I have two other articles I'd like to flag for discussion. That's all right. So on the Article 9, the senior citizen property tax work-off program hours, if you remember the last couple of times we've changed this, it's caused problems. So I just want to make sure we discuss it now. So the last time we amended the hours by a vote of town meeting, and we amended the wages paid effectively, the hourly rate by a vote of this board. I think what the assessors are recommending here could more easily be done by a vote of this board at a meeting, maybe our next posted meeting, to just amend the rate that we pay up to $16 an hour. It would effectively do the same thing without tweaking the cap of the hours voted by town meeting. Anyone has any
Anyone
thoughts
have
on that?
thoughts?
Well, I believe that the cap was increased to $2,000. At the time, the minimum wage was $15, but the following year, many states were going to change that to $16. Massachusetts did not, but that $2,000 allows for 125 hours at $16 an hour. So while we have the cap at $2,000, we're going by minimum wage, so they're not quite getting the full amount. So the Board of Assessors would like them to get the full amount of $2,000. That doesn't give any room, the way it's voted right now, in case minimum wage increases. But certainly, you could do it that way as well, Justin.
Yeah.
Just a vote of the board to
What's your
increase
suggestion,
it to
Justin?
16.
Are you making a motion?
So I would, I guess, yes, move that we eliminate Article 9 and instead place on a future select board meeting agenda an article to consider changing the rate that we pay this out at.
And that has to be voted again in a special town meeting?
That does,
No, that would be a select board meeting.
the hours are set by town meeting, currently the hours are set by town meeting, and the select board is setting the rate that we pay. So we can amend the rates to meet the same goal here without an article at town meeting and changing the hours.
So you want to pass, take it off the warrant, 9?
Sean has a question, I think.
Yes, Sean,
I'll second it for the sake of discussion.
you want to repeat exactly what it is?
Sure. So I motion to
Motion to take it off
remove this from the warrant
and replace it with.
and place on a future select board agenda that we revisit the hourly rate that we pay the senior tax work-off program.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak about that?
I would,
Yes.
just, do you have a preference, Irma? With one or the other?
No. I think it would be maybe less confusing to do it at a select board meeting. It would accomplish what the assessors want to do by just increase it to the 16. That way they could pay out the amount up to the cap.
Yeah. And, I mean, so my thought is, are seniors clamoring to work more hours, or are they clamoring to meet the cap?
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
And then Carl, the other one, I don't know that I'll make a motion on this, but I did just want to kind of raise my concerns with Article 12, the winter parking ban. That one did go through. It was proposed by the DPW Board of Commissioners and approved by the Bylaw Study Committee. But to Dan's point earlier in this meeting, it is effectively a overnight parking ban throughout the town from December 1st to April 1st. So it would prohibit
Sorry.
families parking in the street to shuffle cars and to avoid shuffling cars in the morning or that kind of thing. So I don't know how the board feels about it. I don't know how I feel about it right now, but I did just want to kind of raise that as a concern.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to change? Or just register Justin's concern?
No, I think there should be some good discussion on the floor. So I'm thinking.
Of the town.
By the town, yeah.
Okay, so we'll leave that the way it is.
Yeah.
Anything else, folks? Okay. All those in favor of the annual town meeting warrant as corrected and changed in the last 20 minutes or so?
So moved.
Any discussion? Oh, a second. A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
You know where we are? Okay, you got it.
Got it.
We don't sign this one. We have to wait till you review the new one, right?
Next item is to act on Article 2. There a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Mary Beth?
Okay.
Anything?
So, well, the same thing. I mean, this is like living documents, changes all the time, right up until it goes to print. So I would just like you to take the vote to accept this, and just with any changes that might come about, adding the recommendations in the column from the Finance Committee, anything with the unions, or as more precise information. We have people changing positions in the treasurer's office, so their calculations may change. So any last minute, but nothing substantial here for major changes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Just to clarify, this is just the contingent on an override Article 2. We are not voting or putting forward the if an override fails version of the budget, correct?
That's correct. Last year we had with override, without override, bit confusing. This year we thought we'd keep it simple and just put with the override passing, and then if it fails, of course, we'll adjourn town meeting and come back at a later date. And this does reflect the $340,000 from free cash. We don't want to use free cash for the operating budget, but because we do know the pension liability will be ending in a few years, and then the other post-employment benefit, the 140 that we voted in our fiscal policy. So those are in here as coming from other revenue. So that's why the amount deficit has been reduced. It does factor that in.
Thank you.
And also to clear something up, when we have this town meeting, we do the Article 2, the town moderator, we are voting on the Finance Committee's recommendation.
Correct.
So it's not the Board of Selectmen's, it's the Finance Committee's recommendation. And of course, if we have, want to change it, we can get up and speak on it. But they start with the Finance Committee's recommendation. It's always been that way.
Right, and that's how it's titled too, in that last column.
No, because, I mean, it's not basically, the Finance Committee Are they taking over town meeting? Well, no, they do the recommendations, and that's what's is voted on. And if anybody wants to challenge it, they do it on town hall floor.
Okay. John?
Thank you. I agree with not presenting the contingency budget on Article 2, but my question is, how are we going to communicate the impact of what happens if the override fails? So I'm assuming that the override vote is going to be, the warrant for the override is going to be in front of Article 2 as it did last year, when you're voting for town meeting to vote for the override. How do we know what the impact is if the override fails? And not just from the town budget, but I think we need to hear from the schools, because the district is going to have a bigger impact. And I'm just saying, for hypothetically, to get a list from the school, if, forget the number we're proposing, if it fails 3.6, if the town can only afford 3.6, what impact would that have on the district? And see that list from them. Because without those, people aren't going to know what the no vote means.
Right.
And that's the biggest informational point we have for the override is, if no, then the library closes, then the district loses X amount of jobs. Chiefs lose jobs. Town hall loses jobs. We need those numbers, though. And if there isn't a contingency budget in there, then it's hard to communicate that.
Absolutely. And.
But I think
Yep, go ahead.
you're probably going to be prepared to do that.
Yes, Justin has actually put together some great information on an override forum. We looked at 3 different possible dates for a forum.
Yeah.
One at Town Hall, one at the Council on Aging, possibly one at the library. And the district will be included in the forums for their information, for their cuts. So we do have that information. What we needed to do was first have the number, and then we can go from there to fill that information in and get moving on that. But we're hoping that we could even get something out tomorrow on the forums.
Yeah, and so the 3 proposed forum dates, I locked this down with the superintendent, actually Sean and Kathleen as well, would be April 16th at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. There's a proposed 10 a.m. Wednesday, April 23rd at the Council on Aging, and then 6 p.m. Thursday, May 1st at essentially the library. We haven't confirmed with the library yet, but we could probably use Town Hall if that's not available.
Okay, and that's important. However, I agree with John that at the town meeting, when people are actually going to vote, it's important for them, that those that are there, who are having the vote to put it on the ballot, they have to understand and know the effect if it doesn't pass.
Right, because that's going to help them determine whether or not they vote for that override when they know what's at risk.
Yeah.
And how services will be affected. Totally agree.
And that'll get, and that will get some publicity too.
Absolutely.
There'll be articles in the paper and all. People can watch it, yes.
And I know, sort of jumping off of Article 2, but toward the budget forums and the proposed cuts that John brought up, I do want to be really sure that this board agrees with Mary Beth's proposal as it exists now. And, one of those potential cuts was closing the library. I know that if we just look back to fiscal 20, the cuts that we made back then, we were operating a very different general government side of the ledger there. So, we did not have a day deputy in the fire department. We didn't have a facilities director. We had a part-time building inspector, a part-time veteran service officer. We did not have an assistant IT director. So those are some of the places that the town has grown in the last 5 years. I don't know that I necessarily think we should be cutting from those departments, but we should probably consider that before cutting services that we did provide during fiscal 20. There has been budget growth elsewhere above and beyond what we can afford, and we should at least consider some of that for some of these drastic proposals.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor?
We have a motion for Article 2.
Right. All those in favor?
Okay.
Okay, where are we? Budget update. We really don't need a budget update, do we? Okay. Before Beth gives her report, I just have a couple of things to mention. I was lucky to attend 150th kickoff dinner, not a gala. It was a kickoff dinner Saturday night. It was a great night. It was. I didn't know that we had a Howard Johnson's in Whitman, and that it was the third Howard Johnson's in the state. I didn't know that. But it was a good night. The spirit was there, at a time when every group, whether you're talking about the whole country or a state or a county, it's divided. There's division all over the place. There was no division in that room of those 200 or so people that were there in that room. It was a group of people who were happy to be there to celebrate the 150th anniversary. I noticed myself when I was thinking about it that I've actually lived in Whitman for over a third of that time. But Richie Rosen then reminds me whenever I mention it to him is, yes, but you're not a townie, and that's certainly true. It's certainly true. I'm not a townie, but I'm proud of this town, and I like that night brought that pride out. I'd also like to mention that there is and it's been advertised on the board outside, there is a meeting of Whitman Hanson Will tomorrow night at 6:00 in the high school library, and dinner will be served. And I, once again, would like to encourage people to go to that meeting. You're going to learn a lot about our students and about what our school district does to help those who are in trouble. I'd also like to just mention one other thing. I know there are two sort of turning points in this town as far as the way that the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen and the other departments work have changed the spirit. One time was when Stephen Boyce, years ago, took over the chairmanship of the Finance Committee. I think I was probably on a school committee at that time. Hated the Finance Committee.
Hey, it'd be nice. Steve took over for me because I became a selectman.
I hated the Finance Committee because
20 years.
they never
20 years ago.
wanted to give anything to the school department. Never did. Actually, well, I won't mention some other groups of people, but when Steve Boyce became chair of that committee, the attitude changed. And what the schools needed to do to serve our students was brought to the forefront of the discussions with the Finance Committee, and there was more of a coalesced spirit rather than a divisive one. And I have to say that within the last couple of years, within the last year with Kathy Otina as the chair, I've seen the same kind of a change in spirit between the Finance Committee and the departments that it serves, that it gives advice to. I've just seen these two times. Steve Boyce. Doesn't mean that the people in between were not doing their job, but there's been a marked change in attitude over the past year. Then I'll shut up now. Your turn.
No, actually, it was the treasurer collector issue that I wanted to speak on, so I'm good.
Okay, so we're done with that. The next item on the agenda is to go into executive session to discuss a number of things. We'll go into executive session. We won't be returning in open session. We'd like to go into 3 executive sessions. Executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exception A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Regarding the Whitman Police Union, the Whitman Firefighters Association, Whitman Public Works Union, Whitman Public Library Employees Union, and Whitman Town Employees Whitman Town Hall Employees Association. The second executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Exception 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And that's between the Select Board and its executive administrative assistant. And then the third executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, number 7, is to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. And we're going to review and approve executive session minutes for 2:15:22, 3:1:22, 3:15:22, 4:12:22, and 4:26:22. Is there a motion to go into
So
executive?
moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Votes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're in executive session and we'll return only to adjourn.